is it's quite hard work, which is why it's good that I can fly because I can hardly move. Secondly, Agile doesn't work so much when you build a deck. Version 1 is pretty much what you're stuck with. Try to change it halfway through, not a lot of good things happen. So I am a bit of a recalcitrant about Agile at the moment. I'm actually the CTO at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, HPE. The Hewlett Packard split October last year into two. HP Inc., which is the printer and PC business, and Hewlett Packard Enterprise, which is the rest. And that's me, I'm the CTO. Because this is a TED talk, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Okay? We're used to the hype around big data analytics. Okay? I've got some headlines here. These are last 3 months. Right, we're familiar with this. We know that big data analytics is a critical part of the ecosystem. We probably suspect we're a little bit in the hype cycle. There's a lot of people here that have lived the dream for quite a long time. I know when I went through university, which was a long time ago, SAS was around and it was a very valuable part of an analytics ecosystem. But we are in a hype cycle. Now, I think. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions about this. And I want to make you think. That's all I want to do. This is not an official statement from HPE. This is me, my view, and this is what I think. Because I sit down and talk to people in all sorts of businesses about their challenges, and I think you guys and girls are a really important part of us solving business problems, but also us making New Zealand Inc. work better. Okay? The really big issue that I see with analytics and big data is that we use analytics and we use big data to answer the wrong question. Time and again. The science is good. The analytics is good. The data is good. But we're using it to answer the wrong question. Let me give you an example. Anyone heard of Donald Trump? The pollsters prior to Iowa Republican primary, which is 10 days ago, 10 individual polls ahead of the Iowa primary had Trump ahead by an average of 7 points. That's polling companies. Most polling companies have been in business for longer than you or I've been around. They know this stuff. So let's not use polling companies, that's old tech. Let's look at new tech. Let's look at Google Analytics. Let's look at people that have searched for Donald Trump on the internet who live in Iowa. And we'll use that as a proxy for people who are going to vote for Donald Trump. And that's the number, 46%. Wrong question. The prediction markets, everyone heard of prediction markets? Okay. The prediction markets had the result. If I roll back to 2012, the presidential election in the US in 2012, Gallup. Everyone heard of Gallup? Been around a while? Good data science? Yeah. Good data science. Good analytics? Yeah. They couldn't call the election. In fact, they did. They said it was too close to call, but they had Romney ahead by 1%. By 1%. 2 days before the election, Paddy Power, you ever heard of Paddy Power? Okay, prediction market. Paddy Power closed their books and paid out on a par. 2 days before the election. Another prediction company called 49 out of 50 states. Accurately. So what is that? The folks across town at Victoria, anyone here to predict it? Or I predict? Prediction market. New Zealand grown. Prediction market. Not onshore anymore, unfortunately. Gone to the US. they're calling the election right now on their markets. What's the difference? We've got companies that have spent years perfecting polling. We've got big data and analytics here, and we've got a prediction market. We're getting different results, and everyone's right. I'll tell you, I think, there's a lot of reasons. I'll tell you, the main reason is they ask the right question. And people who look at the results don't think about the question. So if you ask me, would you vote for Donald Trump? And let's say I say yes. It's Gallup. If you ask me to put $100 on what I think is going to be the result of the election, I won't say Trump. Because I think he's unelectable. I like he's unelectable. Different result, because it's a different question. And the challenge for us, right here in New Zealand, is to be aware of that. Because you guys and girls are sometimes part of the process that answers the wrong question. Because we live in a different world now. We live in a world where what was true yesterday is not necessarily true today or tomorrow. This is 2002 to 2012. The guys on the right no longer exist. The guys on the left are in the S&P 500. If I was to do it now, it would be a different set of names. Most of the guys on the right are dominant, were dominant in their markets. They were the big gorillas. Codex, the classic, you all heard the story. They invented a digital camera. Because what I want you to understand is that companies are not good at asking tough questions. Companies are not good at thinking from the outside in. They think from the inside out. Instinctively, we think from the inside out. Instinctively, we look to justify what we're currently doing. We look for reasons why the new thing won't work, rather than the counterfactual. Why it might work, why we should be thinking about it. Okay? A couple of months ago, I had a chat with the CMO of the bank, New Zealand Bank, and asked this gentleman, I said, what do you think about Harmony? Everyone heard of Harmony? Yeah. What do you think of Harmony? And he said, yeah, well, it's good. We're looking at it. We like it. We keep an eye on it. I said, well, what do you think about it? Is it a threat? He said, oh no. Why not? Well, because we own the asset. That's what he said. We own the asset. And I thought to myself, that's exactly why I use them. That's exactly why I use them. Because they don't own my asset. He was thinking from the inside out, not from the outside out. We just heard the last speaker talk about digital disruption. What happens in an industry where the cost of supply trends to zero, the cost of demand trends to zero? What happens? Disruption. And that's going to happen in your industry, regardless, because that's what's happening. And our challenge in New Zealand is to be part of that disruption positively. For us to be part of the creation or the creative destruction that we need to be doing inside each of our businesses. To be starting to prompt and to ask the right questions so that our companies, our businesses can be prepared to change. Okay? I'm going to leave you with, it's not easy. It's not easy to do, so I'm going to leave you with a tip. This is really important. If you're going to change, you can't do what you did yesterday. You've got to do it differently, and you've got to do it smart. And so sometimes you've got to rethink what risk is, you've got to rethink how you present something, you've got to rethink how you go about presenting your ideas. I'll leave that with you. I'm going to hand over to Matt, a colleague of mine who's going to talk a little bit about how HPE is helping some businesses overseas. Thanks.
thought I'd bring it back to reality. Dave, by the way, one of the companies on this is Compact, and the reason they don't exist anymore is we bought them. So, yeah, another thing that people don't or might not know about is that obviously HPE asked me to come here and talk about servers and storage today, and we are number one for servers and storage globally. And so I've got 25 slides here, and they said, no, we can't really do that. So we might talk at the next layer up about what we're doing, which is about what we're doing in the world of data and analytics. One of the things that we did do is actually both of the last Obama campaigns, we ran the analytics for Obama. A couple of interesting points that came out of that. So the first one was that if you're American, apparently the best thing you can put on any sort of correspondence from a president or a presidential campaign nominee after all the analytics we put is hey. And people, if you start your email correspondence to the American public, you start it with hey, they're much more likely to pick on it than if you go hi or it's a presidential mandate or those sorts of style things. So they really, in the States, get quite granular about what they're doing with their analytics. And the second thing is that in the last election, the Romney one that Dave was talking about, Obama was absolutely miles behind in the white woman 40 to 55 demographic. Polling about 23-24%, Romney was up in the 70s, and this is quite worrying for white middle class women because they're likely to be out there and vote, and they make up a large proportion of the population. So they counted this with George Clooney, was actually what the Obama campaign did. They brought George Clooney in, and lo and behold, they managed to even score. It's actually true, so it's a bit worrying. So really, I thought I'd just sort of talk about 4 things that we're seeing in the market. I get to travel around a bit and see sort of things. So a lot of these are sort of interrelated, but most of the companies we're working with today is about real-time data. So it's actually genuinely working in real time. If you look at some of the digital disruption plays that Dave was talking about before, some of the companies we work with, like Uber, they do real-time analytics, and you think that they real-time know where their assets are, right? So you think that would be all their cabs globally. Yes, we do know that, and that's all stored in our analytics database that we run for them. But actually, that's not what their assets are. The assets they use. So is anybody here an Uber customer? I caught them here this morning. They're actually tracking the fact that you're sitting here because their assets aren't their cars, because they don't actually own those, all their drivers. Their assets are the people that actually want to take rides. So they know where you are if you've got geolocation on your phone 24/7, because they're using this to predict the likelihood of when you're wanting to get in one of their cabs. So they've got enough of those on the road, and they're doing demand forecasting. So it is about real time. The other big market that we actually really dominate, we've got 9 out of 10 top gaming companies globally. And if you look at how the CEO of Zynga, which is a reasonable sized organisation, about 5 billion turnover in the gaming space, he describes his business as an analytics company that happens to sell games. So one of the things they do is they understand every single interaction every person's having at every stage in every game, and they review that every 30 minutes in their business 24 hours a day. Because if you're in the world of gaming, anybody heard of gamification? Really, it's about the world of interacting and actually real-time measuring and monitoring, but I would describe it as that. But they actually are doing that because you can have 10 million people playing today and no one playing tomorrow, no revenue. So if you're not working in real time in that particular industry, you're out of business. Sort of the business edge, where I've got the RIP slide there, is when we're looking at customers, and a big customer like Facebook, which got 40 petabytes of online database storage in our product called Vertica. They're analysing over 1 billion ad impressions on an hourly basis on all their customers. They track the geolocation of where everybody is, your social network, what your social network clicked on, and they're using this to charge higher than average industry charges for their advertising. They are an advertising company, after all. But how do they do that? If you're doing real time, you can't have this sitting inside of the BI team. So I know a lot of you would be in the BI team, but what we're seeing majorly offshore is that the BI people increasingly are sitting in the business and they're actually the business people doing BI. And that's actually brought on by people like Zynga and those sorts of people who are actually, they don't employ a BI team, everybody is supposed to be a BI person, right? Apart from that, called developers. So the next one really is all your data. So, and I mean all your data. You'd be surprised how many organisations who are just doing financial reporting when we go and talk to them and these sorts of things. Maybe we know a little bit about customers. So we can do things like at Auckland Transport, they're using video analytics to measure all the people on the pavements, all the cars going past, all those sorts of things, and actually taking the BI out of those sorts of tools that they're currently storing. Heaps of organisations do that. That's actually looking at the unstructured world. So a lot of what HPE works in is in the machine learning and gaining business value out of your unstructured data as well as your structured data. So I know there will be talks on SaaS on that today, but we can extend it across both video, audio, and all of your unstructured data as well. So there's a lot of information of business value in that sort of space. The next one really is, and I've sort of got the elephant in the room, it's a bit of a squash elephant, but is the world of Hadoop. So how many people actually really know the Hadoop story, invented by Google, right? Productized by Yahoo, released to the Apache Foundation sort of 8 or 9 years ago, and then people like Cloudera and Hortonworks and NetAre have built a business around that over the last 5 years. So one of the things that's come out of, it's one of the key things that's actually come out of the world of Yahoo. But what do you think those big Silicon Valley companies like LinkedIn, like Twitter, like Yahoo, like Google, like Apple, do you think they use Hadoop for their analytics, or do they use Hadoop for sort of file storage? Because they don't. Yahoo, who invented or created the whole Hadoop story, are an HPE Vertica Analytics customer. So while Hadoop is a great answer for file storage, I'm not certain that's actually the be-all and end-all answer. I know we've been Hadoop sessions on today and SAS works with it, as do we, and we can SQL inject into the world of Hadoop. But it's not the answer to every equation, and specifically in New Zealand. Certainly, if you're getting into the world of needing to store and manage sort of 50, 100 petabytes of storage and those sorts of things, there's no other tool but Hadoop to do those sorts of things. I think there's no other tool to do sort of online real-time analytics in the 10, 15 petabytes of market other than what we do, but that's not where we are in New Zealand. When you scale this down, it's about capturing and storing the right information. You can put that into SQL Server or Vertica or Oracle, those sorts of things, but it's actually about where you're located in the business, how you're actually working with that, asking the right questions, as Dave says, across all of your data in real time.